Like Kepa, he's a good goalkeeper. There is some yes,
No, Kepa is actually
Bro, I will leave the video.
Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Flagged Off podcast. And again, today with me is Sashank, Nirushan, and Gautam. Guys, it's going to be a long road for us for the recording because the fixtures have been spread out over the whole week due to broadcasting reasons, and it's going to have a little bit of time delay when we get our episode out. But we'll do the best, and we'll make sure we have good episodes out for you. So I think it's been worth it waiting for 10 days since our last recording because this week has been one of the most eventful game weeks. It's had a lot of drama, good results, exciting games, and I think we should be excited to break this down. Gautam, how excited are you?
I'm super excited, bro. Let's get started.
But why are you excited when your team failed to get a result?
Actually, they did get a result. They get 1 point.
That's not a favorable
result. I'm glad. Honestly, from the position we were in, I'm glad we got at least a point. So let's get started.
Okay. Anyway, guys, so let's get in. So this week has been a really eventful week, and I'd just like to highlight the results of the game week so far. So we had the opening game where West Brom hosted Chelsea. It was a 3-3 entertaining game. Crystal Palace lost to Everton at home. Controversial decision. We'll get into that. And late kickoff for Saturday was Brighton versus United. I'm not going to talk much about it yet. We have a lot to discuss about it. West Ham pulled off a 4-0 against Wolves. City fell to Leicester. I think everybody is happy about it in the footballing field, but let's get into that later. Spurs drew against Newcastle. Sheffield, poor form continues in the season. And Burnley hosted Southampton. I think Burnley could have gotten a result being a home game, but failed to do again. Fulham versus Aston Villa. Villa have gotten 3 points with 3 goals. Nothing to say about Fulham there. And the champions Liverpool beat Arsenal 3-1. I think all of us hope that Arsenal would at least take a point off from Liverpool over there, but that did not happen. So anyway, guys, so let's discuss some of the main fixtures for this week. And for the opening one, let's start with Liverpool-Arsenal. Champions have gotten off to a great start, and I don't think there's much to complain about them with how they're showing great signs of retaining the Premier League. So, Nirushan and Sashank, where do you break down this game and what are the talking points of this game so far?
Well, I would like to start off by saying that Liverpool look really hungry. They don't seem to be hungover from last year's campaign. Of course, post-restart, they were sort of sloppy here and there. Maybe that's because they already had the title wrapped up. But this year, it's like a new year. It's a clean slate. It's a new start. And they look very, very, very hungry. Going into the game as an Arsenal fan, I was optimistic. I was hopeful that we get 1 point because any team that's going to be facing Liverpool at Anfield will have to have a near perfect performance. And Arsenal did not have that performance. Yes, we did have our moments during the game, like Lacazette. Even though one was offside and the other one was a clear-cut chance. We did have our moments, but apart from that, Liverpool were all over us. I mean, it was a game of fine margins, the game was 2-1 when Lacazette had the chance. If he had scored, it would have been 2-2. It could have ended up as being 2-2, or Liverpool would have Liverpool could have ended up chasing the game. But then again, it was a game of fine margins. I just hope that we can put this as Arsenal, the Arsenal team can put this behind and keep moving forward. Yeah,
I think this was a big test for Liverpool. Because Arsenal would be the informed team right now. Also, Liverpool and Arsenal are the only 2 teams in the top 6, apart from Spurs, who did not have any European competition after the end of the Premier League season. So I think Liverpool and Arsenal, that's why they've looked really good because they've had the rest, and even though they had players going to the international break, they still have players rested a little more. So I think Liverpool was really... very hard to accept, but Liverpool were really good. I don't know. I think they're going to win the title this year because...
But Sashank, what does that come down to? Why has Liverpool suddenly looked so good against Arsenal this week?
No, they look suddenly good. It's just that it's a the last 2 years at Anfield, they've been performing like this only.
Okay, yeah,
It's
and
not
Anfield,
a
yes,
surprising
correct.
performance. Yeah, that way it is good. But the surprise is that, I thought because Arsenal were in a good form, Arteta, stopped them already twice. But the one that matters more is the Community Shield. And this time, Anfield is a different challenge. And I think after the match, Arteta was mentioning that how tough it is to play against Liverpool there. They did try to beat the press, but it was tough. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about this?
Like we all know how, especially against a team like Liverpool, Arsenal is going to play from the back, right? It's absolutely so everybody knows the tactics spot on. And of course, end of the season last year and as well as early this beginning of this year, Arsenal were able to pull that off in different ways. And I feel like Klopp got it spot on, and people were, especially in terms of the formation and especially, I mean, no big changes in there, but the fact that how tactically each player was, and also to the fact that complete man-to-man marking, making sure that there are no long balls played out from the back. And I feel like Liverpool are a team to watch this season, no matter what. Like I know it's the talking point, but like Liverpool are definitely the team to watch.
Yeah, actually, like the thing is, Klopp set his team up to to ensure that they do not, like Arsenal do not pass it from the back, and because of that, the first half we do not have, like Arsenal did not have the midfielders to actually beat the press, and this game actually highlighted the difference in quality between the two teams, and it also highlighted why Arsenal need central midfielders, someone who can actually beat that press. Because the second half, when we were a bit more positive, we actually had a better performance in the first half. First half, we were just trounced.
Yeah.
They walked all over us.
And the way Ceballos, when he came into the game in the second half, the way he changed the game.
Exactly.
Just imagine if they had... And Arteta is playing Elneny. Come on, you can't play Elneny.
I mean, the thing is, that's the person that we have, right? So, like, I was looking at this game, and that's when I realized, like, earlier, Gautam had said that Arsenal needs someone like Partey. And when I was looking at this game, that's when I realized, okay, fine, we need Partey because he's someone who can actually break that press and he'll progress the ball upwards. And once you progress the ball upwards, you're creating chances. You have different people who can create chances, but we were not able to break the press. And the entire first half was like attack versus defense training session. That's how it was.
Yeah, but to sum up that, I think, like you said, Nirushan, if you always manage to throw the ball into the opponent's penalty box, there's always a chance. You need to do that. So, having said that, personally, I hate Klopp and the Cop. I hope they don't succeed like last season. And let's hope that we have a good season going forward.
No hope they are winning it. Just suspend all hope right away.
So, Sashank, it was nice having you on the episode. I think you'll be thrown away from next week. So just stay calm. Anyway, guys, so moving on to the next game. Man City versus Leicester. It was a very, very, very good game from being a neutral fan. It was a game of good quality also. I wouldn't say it was very, very poor from City. Yes, they had problems at the back, but even they had a little bit of contribution. They did have their game going through, but there was no flow, and Leicester managed to get the result. So the first question that I'd like to ask you guys over here regarding this game is, do you think City still have problems at the back, which is going to go on into the season once the fixtures come up and once more quality of opponents are going to start showing up, or was this a one-off result?
Bro, I would like to start by saying, how did you say that you are a neutral fan, bro?
I didn't say
you're a United fan. So that doesn't mean you're a neutral fan. For us, I mean, exactly. So when there are games with City and Liverpool, I feel like United fans are the first one to jump. And right now, I feel like Sashank is technically on the neutral side in terms of Liverpool. But yes, talking about the City game, guys, we all know like City's still has never-ending defensive problems. The people that they've signed, like last year, Eric Garcia, now Nathan Ake, they are not world-class defenders. And the people who are actually come back from injuries, for example, Mendy, right? Mendy's never been the same ever since his first injury. He was top flight, played 12 games in a row. He was absolutely one of the best left backs in Premier League. You guys, and I feel this all comes down to my favorite dialogue that I've been hearing since end of last season from Lampard, comes down to individual mistakes. You cannot concede 3 penalties in a game, no matter what. No matter, especially being a world-class team, being a Champions League contender, being a Premier League contender, you cannot in any way concede 3 penalties. Okay. It just comes down to that. If you break down those 3 penalties, it comes down to 3-2. there is still a chance for them to at least get a point out of that game. I mean, sorry, 2-2.
Correct. I understand, but also this was one of those games where like City failed to be dominant attacking wise, because usually the games they drop points, they play well in attacking, and then they make the mistakes defensively. But this time they couldn't create chances. What they did was they put in that Rory Delap's son to play striker, and then De Bruyne and Kyle Walker, they started crossing the ball. The new guy Ferran Torres, he was coming and he was just crossing the ball to this guy's head. Pep playing crossing football in terms of like, he didn't have a clue attacking wise, because Rodgers set up with 5 + 4, almost 9 people at the back. So he couldn't do anything. And Leicester are not this usual team who will just, like, for example, like a Newcastle who would sit back and not do anything throughout the game. As soon as they win the ball, they know how to break with Vardy, right? So, and they had
absolutely. But Shashank, you have to talk. But Shashank, sorry to interrupt, but you have to talk about 2 players. I feel like 3 players actually.
Okay, guys, excuses, apologies. Gautam is disconnected for some reason. And yeah, Shashank, what were you saying? So what did you think of Brendan setting up his team to play on the counter and going against his natural style of play?
Exactly. That was something that Brendan himself mentioned in his interview, where he said usually he plays a little more attacking and his team tries to dominate with the ball. But this time, purposely, I think they sat back. They saw these games where Arsenal won in the FA Cup, were playing this kind of tactic, and I think they're following it well. United play this way against them, so a lot of teams do this. The Liverpool are the only team who go head-to-head against City and can win. The other teams, it's very tough to do that. And Gautam, you're going to mention 2 players. I think your written is back. Who are the players you're mentioning?
Yeah. So it was basically, I wanted to talk about 3 actually. Harvey Barnes and James Maddison, bro. What a talent.
Yeah.
What a talent, bro. Like, Maddison coming back from an injury like that and scoring that kind of a goal, and against a top club like that's unbelievable, bro.
Also,
like, I feel like he has all the potential to be better.
Yeah, and Tielemans and Mendy, the 2 of them, they were also really good in that game. They dominated Rodri and Fernandinho. Fernandinho was subbed out like in the 50th minute for like the lapse from. And this was the moment, just on a lighter note, this was the moment I realized that we were watching Rory Delap's son play Premier League. That's how old we were. We watched Rory Delap long throws and we were watching his son playing in Premier League. So it's
that throw-in hit me right in my heart.
But that was one of the key. What do you say? It was one of the points, or one of the tactics that Stoke used to succeed at one point for that whole Premier League season, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to see another tactic like that again. Do you guys remember any other tactic that stood out like that in the last few years?
It's tough.
Mourinho's ball boy situation, maybe.
No, but this one was very good. And teams used to kick out the ball to the corner instead of to the throw line, fearing Delap. That's how scary they were.
Exactly.
Or maybe Eric Dyer's restroom break today was a tactical break.
Okay, guys. Anyway, I think so. We've done a little bit of discussion of the City Leicester game, but I don't think we discussed much about the game, and we spoke well about the players.
Just summing it up, VK, I think it's going to be a very, very tough season ahead. And I think Jamie Carragher mentioned in his analysis that Ruben Dias is going to be that make or break signing.
Correct.
If he succeeds, City are going to probably win the title. But looking at Liverpool, I'm highly, highly doubtful that City is going to win the title this season.
Only time is going to tell, and I know that we don't need to wait till the end of the season. By Christmas, we're all going to know how it's going to pan out, and let's just hope that we have a very good title ending season. I don't want it to end in December, and I'm sure nobody wants. So anyway, that being said,
it'll end in November. Don't worry.
Okay, guys. Anyway, so moving on. So let's discuss about the most controversial game or most happening game with most drama, everything. Brighton versus United. Okay, guys. We all know Brighton were the better team. They played proper football. They were set up. They had the right tactics. They came in with a game plan. Ole got it completely wrong with the setup of the first team, and this is not the first time, and we don't know how long it's going to be before Ole changes his mind. But how good were Brighton? And do you think Brighton can keep up this, at least for their home games going forward?
I actually want to start off by saying Brighton weren't exceptional. It was just that United's front three were abysmal. All right. The reason why Solly March had so many shots towards goal was because Greenwood was not tracking him at all. There was one point in the game, I still remember there was like several instances, but I want to highlight one point. Alzate, he was facing Ryan. He received the ball, he turned and he played a pass to Conley. He did all of this while Greenwood was like 5 meters or like a short distance away from him. Any player would know, okay, I'll at least have to close him down. I'm not going to go to win the ball, at least close him down so I don't give them that passing opportunity. But Greenwood did not do that. You got to understand that if you're going to defend, the entire team has to defend. Your defense starts from the front line. And if your front line is not going to do any sort of defending, you're putting a lot of pressure on the back four and the holding midfielders. And that was the case against Brighton. That's why they had so much joy behind Van Bissaka, because Greenwood wasn't tracking the winger or the left back. And that's why they had so much joy. Even the second goal, I think, for Brighton it went over all the defenders and went into that empty space behind the entire back four where they scored.
But that goal was coming, that cross and into the back post was almost
exactly. So what I'm saying is this wasn't one instant. It's been happening throughout the game, and Ole Gunnar should have said, okay, fine, you will have to track that left back, or you will have to do this, do that, so that they nullify that threat. 90 minutes, nothing happened. He was just sitting on a seat and looking into that monitor at the side. Like, you know how irritating that would be. Like, you're just looking at it and you're like, and the only time he celebrated was the goal, which shouldn't have happened. Somehow, I don't know what.
He shouldn't have.
Nirushan, thank you so much for the actual football analysis. But let's get into United side of. Let's get into the real point table analysis. Yeah. So I feel there are two people who are the most luckiest managers right now. I would say number one is Frank Lampard and number two is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. These two guys are just because they are club legends, I will have to agree. They are just paddling the boat, they think it's a kayak, but at the end of the day, it's an actual boat or a ship, you could call it. They're trying to paddle a ship with like two rowboats, calling it one is Mason Mount, Tammy Abraham, and these guys are like Greenwood and whoever he is. I don't know. But in reality, that goal should have never stood. I've never seen something like this in my life.
That's an illegal fair goal.
Yeah, why should that goal not stand?
The whistle was out.
Dude, that whistle.
It was after the final whistle.
This was more like basketball, you know, like basketball. Like even when you take the throw and after the whistle is blown, it goes in. It's still counted, right, or something like that. Because I thought the whistle was final. They always say to the whistle. Right, that means once the whistle is done, you stop.
But you are allowed to have a look at it, and that's the reason VAR is there. So it's not something that was done.
It's not like he blew the whistle in the middle of the game.
Yeah, so he blew the whistle. The game is over, but there was a point which had to be seen, so it was looked at. So are you guys disputing that now, though, if the whistle is blown and if there was a fair penalty to be given or a fair decision, you're saying we should not go back into the decision?
Yeah.
Bro, the game is done.
How many times referees have given out red cards to people, and when they review it, they'll be like, no, this is not a red card offense. And what do? What can you do?
And also because of the fact, didn't Leicester score at the last minute? Technically, they scored at the last kick of the goal in terms of, if you're looking at the time. Sorry, not Leicester, Brighton.
Brighton scored. Yeah, that's what. Okay, criticism is about the added time. I'll understand, but your criticism can't be about the handball. That was before he blew the whistle.
We are talking about the chain of events after that handball. See, handball. Yes, we agree that it was a handball. It should have stood. All right.
It was handball, but not a penalty.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. One second.
The thing is, what came first? What came first? His decision to end the game came first before the penalty. If the penalty was before the decision to end the game, fine, well and good. It should have stood, take the penalty. But the decision to end the game came first, and that's what we are talking about.
The decision to end the game was something that had to happen. He did it. But VAR is there to review a decision which is wrong again, or something that has been missed out. And I think it's fair and right. Yeah, Sashank. You want to say something?
Yeah, sorry. No, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll give you one small thing, Let's see, for example, just because the final whistle is blown, that doesn't mean you can start having it as the rugby game later and start fighting. The red cards are going to be dished out. Things are going to happen after it. Results are going to be shown. Things are going to happen. And whatever happened was a gameplay that was happening. So it is fair to take it into point. I don't know why you're saying it's not allowed to take it into point.
Yeah, bro, but the problem for neutral fans is it happens only for United.
Dude, wait 1 second. Hey, 1 second. which came first? The referee's whistle come first or the handball came first?
The handball did come.
No. Correct.
handball happened before
The basic of football is you play to the whistle. There have been instances where there is an actual handball, but the referee does not blow for it. All right. So what you do is the game carries on. You don't stop and you're like, no. You don't wave your hand. Like you're hoping the referee blows for it.
Okay.
What came first? The decision to blow to end the game.
Listen, I am going to kill you. You asked it
let's agree
5 times,
disagree.
you answered it. You don't want to
Let's
accept
agree to disagree here. Because if
Okay,
you say
fine.
that was not a handball,
End of the day,
handball
end
should
of the day,
yeah.
see, end of the
இல்ல
day,
இது எப்படி இருக்குன்னா சஷாங்க் இது எப்படி இருக்குன்னா it's I mean how it's like basically like I take a penalty kick and then the whistle comes. So which came first? I scored the penalty or if the whistle came first? Same thing, right? It's the same story.
Okay, guys.
So
guys,
if it's a penalty kick,
okay, boys, okay. We can have this argument a little more, but let's just hold on. But anyway, sorry viewers, it's a little heated thing. More of this.
Shashank, come to private chat.
Yes. So one small thing, guys. So having said all that, and to sum up this game, the Woodwork and Greenwood have done more than Woodward for the club at the moment, and we have made our 2 key signings for the season. Our 12th man is VAR, and our 13th is the Woodwork, because the Woodwork is not going to be there all the time, but VAR is going to go on for the whole season, and I think it's going to be a key point for all games going forward, but more for United if such things happen throughout the game.
that is why his name itself is Woodward, bro.
Okay, fine. Anyway, guys, so moving on, the last fixture, we're just having to discuss this because of something that has happened and which we did not expect. Chelsea going out, making so many signings. We thought they should be contending for the title. They might be, still early to say. But in terms of the West Brom Chelsea game, Chelsea have not had a result in 3 game weeks now, or 3 games, Gautam. And there's a lot of problems at the back. You've played 3 different keepers. Yes, there has not been many blunders, but can a manager afford to keep changing his keepers so often? And what is the situation at the back, and how do you think it should be addressed, guys?
For me, to being a Chelsea fan and looking at it from a football perspective, of course, I don't want to say, okay, Chelsea, they're doing better, they're going to improve. Yeah, of course, everybody knows that all top 4 clubs, that their goal is to improve. Mm-hmm. My only thing is, he needs to identify his starting 11. Okay. We've had enough of him trying to play this chess pieces since last year, trying to figure out who is going to be part of his starting 11. So I feel like that is key for Chelsea to succeed because of the number of signings that they've made. He needs to be able to establish that let's go ahead and make sure that we have 11 people who are actually first team players for the club. So the last game, even the game against West Brom, we came back 3-3. Great, good job. We lost 3 goals because of stupid individual mistakes. But we came back, and the 3 goals that were scored was not scored by any of the signings. Was actually scored by the homegrown youth players, exactly. All 3 goals. So he needs to actually identify how to get this perfect mixture and who is actually part of his starting 11. I feel that's the way I see it.
Yeah, true. I actually want to add to that as well. I think moving forward, managers need to have more of a stable team. They just cannot keep cutting and chopping and changing because it changes the entire dynamic. That's something even City are also facing at the back because they keep changing the centre-back pairing that people do not like. Like it's all about being on the same wavelength, right? When you're playing a team game like football, everybody needs to be on the same wavelength. You don't need superstars. You need people who are all on the same wavelength. And when you keep cutting and chopping, you're not going to have a set team. I understand injuries happen and then you have to put in, but unless circumstances dictate that you need a player, you don't change. Why do you change? Like Kepa, he's a good.
Exactly.
He's a good goalkeeper. There is some.
Bro, I will leave the video session now, bro.
Listen. Kepa has issues with shot stopping, but he's a very commanding keeper. He's a commanding keeper in comparison to other keepers in the Premier League. He commands his box. He commands what defenders need to. Of course, the shots come to him. He fluffs his lines. There have been instances where even De Gea has fluffed his lines, but look at him. I'm telling you. See, the thing is, right now it's more of a confidence thing. Maybe if
De Gea was the best keeper in the Premier League for 5 years, and then he's failing now.
In a row, yeah.
He hasn't done anything till now.
Yeah.
So
maybe
bro. Very simple, bro. at the end of the day, no matter how much we say, "Oh, I like this football player, I like that football player," stats matter, bro.
That's true.
He's conceded.
That's true.
I don't know at the percentage. I'm not able to recall. He's conceded the most number of goals for a goalkeeper for Chelsea.
Exactly.
So, and also
But
no
season
stats
you mean,
actually
right?
favor him in terms of a goalkeeper.
True.
What?
No, he's considered most number of goals for Chelsea per season. Is that what you meant, or throughout?
No. Like he's the goalkeeper who's conceded the most number of goals in one season. Or something
That was
like
because
that.
Benitez
There's
has
like a
been there for
stat,
so many
yeah.
years. Obviously, he would have considered.
Dude, his save ratio is the lowest in the league compared to
Okay.
other Premier League keepers. So he's certainly not better than many Premier League keepers. He's not.
No.
Good keeper
You're
is not
focusing on
world-class.
you're focusing only on one aspect of the game, which is his saves. I'm talking about like him commanding the
Don't
box.
do that, you concede goals if you don't do it.
So
Your
Yeah.
saves are bad, you concede goals. That's the main.
but then you'll have to look at him in the front, the defense in front of him, right? The defense is also ragged.
Bro,
I agree with that.
The
I
thing
agree.
is,
That is
the
correct.
right way to say that is he might be a good keeper, but he's not done enough to say that I am world class or I deserve respect or I can hold on to this position and
Yeah.
I can
Could be.
the one who can
Absolutely.
get Chelsea out when they needed a game. So I think
That's true.
Absolutely, and
Nirushan is
and
right.
just like how Nirushan said in terms of whole City changing the pairing, right? If you guys actually look at the last 3 Chelsea games, Chelsea was also played the puzzle. Thiago Silva, Christensen, Zuma, Christensen, Zuma, Tomori. So it's like they're doing that shuffle too. So they need to be able to establish my starting 11 and go forward from there.
I agree. Also, that Nirushan mentioned a good point where it's not only that his Kepa is not doing the job; he's facing a lot of shots because of the defense and the midfield.
Exactly.
So I agree. Yeah, correct.
Okay,
But
okay.
still not a good keeper.
I mean, see, if for me, I think it's something to do with his confidence. I think it's a psychological thing, but I do not doubt his talent because if he wasn't talented, I don't think he would have been like at this level.
No, but,
Like in the sense, like breaking out, playing football professionally.
but Chelsea panicked and bought him because Courtois did not attend training, and then they didn't have any
Yeah,
open
yeah,
options, so they directly went and 71 million release clause. He's not better than Alisson or anybody. So
correct. Among the top club keepers, he's going to be the lowest rated keeper.
But I just want.
I would take Ramsdale, bro.
I just want to ask one thing: is he under so much scrutiny because he's worth 70 million? If he was worth
That
20
is
million,
the problem.
what would
The
your
price tag is the problem.
Dude, that's the same issue with Pogba, right? VK.
Yeah. No. Yeah, the Pogba thing has its thing. They're almost the same in ways. But for Kepa, the thing is, dude, it was the circumstances in which he was brought in, the price tag, what was expected of him, and how everything has unraveled. That is what has taken it off thing. Otherwise, he was decent. That was the reason why he was given that price, hoping that he would develop. Like how De Gea was so poor for 3-4 years with the balls in the air, and suddenly he developed. None of us expected that. Only Sir Alex was the one who believed him. Not any United fan believed him at that time. But anyway, man, it's a matter of time.
Bro, but that is absolutely, you're right. But the thing is, one thing I'd just like to add is that in terms of transfer fee, right? Transfer fee specifically, I believe that yes, it does add pressure, but at the same time, it actually brings out the cream of the class. Like Ronaldo signings, like Bale signings, those people, like those people, they can get to that extra level. So I feel like it is a two-way street when it comes to the pressure and in terms of the transfer fee.
True.
Okay, having said that, I think we will get to know about that and everything going forward. We'll have a little more discussion on Kepa. I think let's have an episode on Kepa because I've never seen the four of us so opinionated and ready to say things. But Nirush, I just wanted to mention one thing. I forgot to do it at that time. You said that you cannot keep changing your squad, your players, and your starting 11. But I think this is a time Frank Lampard can and he should do it because he doesn't know what a starting 11 is. He's got more than 23 people in the squad. He doesn't even know what his squad should be. And apart from the Liverpool game, these are the fixtures. He can do it. But I think he underestimated West Brom a little too much maybe on that aspect. But it's okay. It's something that you can get away with by the end of the season. And let's just hope that Chelsea can work out what their squad is, what their first 11 is, and get better results for them going forward. Anyway, guys, having said that, thank you so much for your views on the game week and the key games so far. I think let's make this more of an interactive session and have this as what we're going to do going forward. And before we
started fighting with each other.
it's okay as long as we get our opinions out and we learn a little more of the game and more about what the tactics were of players and the managers and everything. It's good, right? That's what we're here to do. Anyway, guys, with that, we're going to end the segment of the game week and let's move on to Fergie time. This has been a point of discussion more than the Fantasy Premier League at times. And let's get fantasy back in soon. But anyway, let's just highlight what's happened from last week. And
VK, would you like to talk about your wildcard?
yes, the wildcard has been very effective. Thank you for the 30 points. Bloody idiots. No fantasy. I'll vent more about fantasy than Woodward at the moment. So let's just stay away from that. So yeah, guys, coming back to Fergie time. So far the scoreboard reads 5 points to me, Nirushan at 0, Gautam at 1, and Sashank has 1 point. So guys, going back to the predictions from last week, Liverpool versus Arsenal. Sashank, you called the result right, and you even got the result 3-1 to Liverpool. But we all know where you stole that from, so that's okay. Gautam, you predicted City to beat Leicester 2-0. Huge turnaround. That score, like,
There was 2 goals, but they conceded 5, bro. What I'll do?
You got one half of the scoreline, right?
yeah.
Do I get half the points?
No, sorry, bro. You can just get the. You see, you don't even get a score line. Result was also not there for you, so no point.
For this, I should have used Bet 365, bro. At least they would have given me points for that.
And then we had Wahab, the guest, choosing Brighton to beat United 2-0. Again, a cocky guy with a bold result. Didn't work out. I'm glad that happened. And the final one was...
He got half of the score also.
Then I chose Everton to get the result versus Crystal Palace 3-1. But it was a 2-1 to Everton. It's okay. I got the result right, but not the scoreline. So that was that. And I think it was a good... I don't know what is the right word to say, but I think everybody is getting a little bit of the results right. We're getting a little bit of things right. We just need to get the scoreline right going forward.
It's just pure.
Except Nirushan, because we didn't even ask him last week, so he's still at 0 points.
Actually,
He's like one of those guys.
there's a,
He's like one of those guys who start Fantasy Premier League 2 weeks later.
there's actually an error. Like in game week 2, I predicted City beating Wolves. And so that was like a late kickoff. But then I predicted City to beat Wolves. So I have 1 point. I've opened. I started. No, wait. I started.
Okay. So anyway, guys, before we close up, I want your predictions for the upcoming game week. Nirushan, we're going to go with you first. Who do you pick to be the winner, or what is your scoreline for United versus Spurs? Where does your loyalty lie?
My heart wants Mourinho, whereas in my head I am going to go for United win. United will win 2-1.
2-1. Okay, let's see how that goes. Gautam?
United conceding only 1 goal, Nirushan.
Sorry.
United conceding only 1 goal.
Yeah.
Sashank, why do you have to do that to us? Hold on. Yeah, Gautam. So the second one fixtures for you, Leeds versus City.
Bro, this is the toughest fixture of the weekend, bro, to be honest. I think it'll be 2-1 City, bro.
2-1.
I mean, Leeds are really great, but at the same time, I feel like Pep would want to bounce back from a defeat.
100%.
Yeah, I think okay.
City rarely lose back-to-back.
Okay, but it's going to be a one-off, or let's see, it could happen again, but we'll find out. Sashank, important and again tricky one for you. Everton versus Brighton.
This is Everton home, right?
Yeah, Everton's home.
To Mr. Carlo, but actually Brighton are playing well. But I think Everton have a good midfield right now to contain them. So I think I'll go with Everton. Let me say 2-1 to Everton.
Oh my God!
Richarlison captain.
All
Let's
of you are
go.
predicting 2-1.
Richarlison captain. Let's go.
Mainly because
So wait, VK.
nowadays,
So
Yeah.
VK, bro, what do you think about the Chelsea Crystal Palace game? Please do the same prediction like last time, so that I hope they'll get points. At least you get predictions, right?
3-1 scoreline has been lucky, and I think it is a possible result, right? 3-1 is not impossible. It is thing because Crystal Palace are going to score, so that's going to be there and thing. But I want to keep the trend going, so just for that sake, I'm going to say it's going to be a 2-1.
So all of us get
Bobby.
so all of us are getting 0 points now.
Oh my god.
Okay, guys. So,
Hey, that'll be like 0 wins in 4, bro, for Lampard.
No, you got one.
you guys got the opening one, right?
Brighton.
Yeah.
Hey, that is before. I'm talking including the cup
Yeah,
games
okay,
also.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Anyway, with that, let's wind up for Fergie time. We've gotten our predictions in. Let's see where the results are when we have the next podcast out. And before we end it, guys, thank you so much. It's been a great week. The football has been good. We have been great here. It's good to see you all, and I hope we can keep getting more of this going forward. And thank you everyone for watching. If you do like the channel and if you'd like to support us, please like the video, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you all soon. Bye, boys.
Bye.